So what's new about software as a service is that it's built on what is called a multi-tenant architecture, which is essential for creating the service delivery mechanism in a scalable and economic fashion. With multi-tenancy, what organizations are able to achieve, that is software organizations are able to achieve, is this one-to-many idea, which permits a subscription pricing model to work. Whereas in the old world of the application service provider, we were basically moving the smelly cheeses, I like to say. What we were doing was we were moving the single instance of an application from the customer's data center to the vendor's data center, and there's no real economic benefit to that, to either the customer or the vendor. And as a result, that model doesn't succeed. It hasn't succeeded historically. So with multi-tenancy, we're able to overcome the economic and operational barriers to success, and that's why SaaS has become so popular today.
So among ISVs, I think there's a very common misconception that SaaS is fundamentally a technology, and it's not. It's a disruptive new business model. And today that business model is allowing newcomers to overtake the incumbents. So you see Salesforce versus Siebel, SuccessFactors, and Workday versus PeopleSoft, NetSuite, against all of the mid-market ERP solutions. The incumbent ISVs are worried. They've got to make a change and they don't know why they're losing the battle or how to make the change. The reality is this is a disruptive new model because it benefits both the provider and the customer in meaningful, impactful ways. It's about time to value. Right? The customer can start using the solution today, solve their problems today, and the provider can start billing today. Right? We don't have to wait through a long implementation cycle. It's about rapid innovation. Right? The solution gets better every couple of weeks as opposed to every couple of years. And so if there are changes in your industry, new regulations, new compliance issues, those are reflected in your solution sooner rather than later. And lastly, and probably most importantly, it's about lower TCO, the economies of skill and scale that come out of a multi-tenant delivery platform.
And this concept of single tenancy never really matches the internet. No one ever said, I'm going to start Google or Yahoo or eBay, and every customer that signs up for eBay, I'm going to run a separate section of code for that customer. They write applications that are designed to be used by multiple customers, and it's important for a lot of reasons. One is scale, of course. If you write something in multi-tenancy, you can add many more users than you can run separate instances of the software. As a matter of fact, if you're running separate instances of software for each customer, it starts getting more expensive the more customers you have, because every time you try to upgrade the code, and come on the internet, we're trying to upgrade every couple of weeks, right? Add new features. You have to do that for hundreds of customers. It takes longer to upgrade than it does to write the actual code.
So I started Think Strategies in 2001 when I first began to recognize not only the opportunities but the challenges associated with moving from a product-centric to a services-driven model. And we were seeing a number of the ASPs of that time floundering because they couldn't scale their business. Ironically, there's still some software companies trying to use the ASP approach as the first step towards that transition process. And inevitably, they find themselves stuck in the mud, basically, as they try to make that transition. This marketplace is going to demand a faster shift towards SaaS in the form of multi-tenancy, because not only are we seeing an accelerated demand today, but we're seeing a new generation of net-savvy workers coming to the marketplace who are not going to accept anything less than the on-demand capabilities that only multi-tenancy can achieve.
Well, one of my biggest concerns is, the cloud is got this new area of where we're using cloud for infrastructure, which includes a high amount of virtualization and automation of that virtualization. So you can actually create these virtual containers that come out and deploy an image automatically behind the scenes. And a lot of people are using that to take traditional software and deploy it into the cloud as a way of kind of faking a true web application and faking multi-tenancy. And if you have to get something out tomorrow, it's a viable option. It really does allow you to have the customer make it look like it's one single code base, even though they're all getting their own instances. I very much caution, though, that you still have the problem of rolling out updates and new features. I mean, you don't have a yearly release cycle when you're on the web. You actually release new features and fixes every couple of weeks, even for mature applications. And when you start thinking about having a couple hundred, or even worse, a couple thousand virtual containers all running separate code for separate customers and having to update those, I'm a sysadmin, I can tell you, virtualization's great. It doesn't solve that problem. It's going to become worse and worse over time until people fix it. So you can use that virtual container approach early days to get something out quickly. But generally, we say over about 100 customers, 100 separate instances using virtual containers begins to fall over. And at that point in time, the time it takes to update the code becomes greater than the time it takes to write the code. I say 100, and I've seen a lot of companies come to us when they get to about 100 and they're really struggling. But the reality is I've seen people fall over with 8.
So many of the ISVs, I think, the early adopters in this realm have fallen prey to what I think is a tempting shortcut. And the shortcut is around an easy way to get to SaaS. So Phil Wainwright actually coined a great term for this. He referred to it as SaaS, the same old software as a service. Right? Formerly, this was manifest as the ASP model, right? The application service provider. Now we've added the magic bullet of virtualization. Virtualization's hot, and the hope is with virtualization technology, we can take the same old software and deliver it as a service effectively. So we package up our solution as a virtual appliance, deploy it and host it for our customer, and hope that that's going to deliver the benefits of SaaS. And there are pluses and minuses. Certainly, you get a fast start, you don't have to modify your code base, but you're really not doing things very differently from what the customer would do. And in my mind, that's the definition of insanity, right? The proposal is, if you break it down, you're going to do exactly what the customer would do with your software if you delivered them a disk, but you're expecting a radically different result. That's never going to happen. This type of approach, and experience has borne this out, it scales to a certain point, but is never very profitable, and ultimately those players can't compete with a true SaaS provider.
As this marketplace evolves, there is no question that moving to a multi-tenant architecture is essential for any software company who wants to establish its leadership in this industry. The way in which multi-tenancy works is so key to operational efficiency, key to economic optimization as well, and meeting the needs of customers long term as those needs evolve, as they have been doing over time. So what we're seeing then is that multi-tenancy does represent a competitive advantage, and those companies who don't move to multi-tenant architectures are going to find themselves falling behind.
CEOs today may be resistant to moving to software as a service and, more importantly, multi-tenancy. And I think the reason is because they think it's a technology trend that they need to take to the CTO or to the head of R&D. It's not. It's about the business model. So this is where a CEO is. You cannot delegate this. This is not a technology decision. This is a business decision. If you are in charge of a software company today and you are the CEO, you need to make this your number one imperative, which is to figure out how to get to software as a service, how to become multi-tenant, because this affects your whole business model, from delivery, from sales, from customer service, from finance. Everything is going to be important, especially from competition. You need the competitive edge, and you need to give yourself that by this transformational experience. So today, this isn't about taking a brochure on multi-tenancy or SaaS, taking it to your CTO. This is about you owning this initiative, making sure it happens, because it's a fundamental change to your business model that you need to make yourself more successful and to take your company into this new competitive realm.
So what's the difference? What's a true SaaS provider got that the virtualization provider doesn't have? The difference is a service delivery platform. This is something completely separate from the existing application logic. It's about automating multi-tenant management. It's what makes an ISV a winning service provider. So how is this manifest? Effectively, this is a metrics and automation-rich platform. If you think about the manifestation, what do you see? It's a set of dashboards, if you will, for operations, for accounts, for products, for all of the groups that deliver value to the customer. Now we take that idea and extend it to the notion of a cockpit. In addition to the dashboard, which shows us where we're going, we've also got the knobs and levers to make a difference. So from an operations standpoint, it's about measuring performance to the SLA standard and being able to deploy or retract resources to meet those standards. From the account standpoint, it's about managing the full life cycle, from provisioning through upselling, billing, and churn, right? All of those things are encompassed within both the visibility in the dashboard and the controls in the cockpit. And lastly, from a product standpoint, it's about deployment, bundling, promotions, upgrades. In other words, all the necessary controls to deliver your application and your solution as a service. I believe that the service delivery platform, that's table stakes for SaaS success. Without it, you're going to lose to a competent SaaS provider. You're going to lose on promotions, on customer acquisition costs, on time to live, TCO, and rapid innovation.
Yeah, I can almost tell, looking at public software as a service companies, how multi-tenant they are just based on their COGS. The operation of a multi-tenant application, as opposed to where you're doing single tenancy within the environment, generally brings your cost down from about 40% of running your business down to 10% or lower if you're doing multi-tenancy. So if you go out there and look at a sales force, so, you know, people who've been just right on nails, you have to have multi-tenancy. They have some of the best cost of goods in the business. If you go and look at companies, I won't mention them specifically, but go out and look at software as a service companies whose COGS run at 30% or 40%. You can almost guarantee you it's because they don't have true multi-tenancy, and as a result, they're not getting leverage as their business grows. Now, you would think it was only a price issue, but it also means it's very difficult for them to roll out new code. A lot of that cost is going into change management for them, and as a result, significant sized companies are losing 20% of their revenue just to the fact that they don't have multi-tenancy in their environment. I think it's pretty much impossible for a SaaS company to be successful without multi-tenancy, because I think it's impossible to be a web company or a cloud company without multi-tenancy. Again, the best applications on the web, whether it's Google or Facebook, are designed to be used by multiple users day one. And the idea that I'm going to create a business application but not have that same element means you're not really creating a SaaS application.